世界合唱节的最后一场大师课。Welcome to the fourth and last Masterclasses of 2022 World Choir Festival. 本场大师课是来自委内瑞拉的玛利亚·奎南教授带来的拉丁美洲作曲家及合唱作品。奎南教授是国际合唱联盟2019年合唱终身成就奖获奖主，国际合唱联盟拉丁美洲副主席，委内瑞拉西蒙博利瓦尔大学前音乐系及合唱指挥系教授。This masterclasses is presented by Professor Maria Guinand from Venezuela on the topic of Latin American composer and choral repertoire. Professor Guinand is awarded of IFCM Life Achievement Award of Choral Music in 2019. Vice President of Latin American IFCM and former Professor of Music and Choral Conducting University, Simón Bolívar, Venezuela. Please welcome Professor Guinand. 有请玛利亚·奎南教授。
Hello, my dear friends. My name is Maria Guinand. I am from Venezuela, and I have the pleasure of sharing with you music masterpieces from the Latin American choral repertoire, starting in the 16th century until the 20th century. I will do this through a PowerPoint. I will show you, and you will be able to listen to scores, to see names of composers, and also to have the translation so that you understand what I am saying. So allow me to share the screen and the sound with you. Choral music has been part of cultural life in Latin America from the arrival of the Spanish conquerors to the present day. There is an extraordinary treasure of choral repertoires composed throughout these 5 centuries that is difficult to know in its entirety. The objective of this presentation is to present to you some masterpieces of this wonderful musical heritage through which we can pick and learn more about this extraordinary repertoire. The golden age of Spanish music coincided during the reigns of Emperor Carlos V and Felipe II in Spain. 2 music chapels were maintained at court, a flamenco chapel whose style and technique was the predominant European style at the time, and the Spanish chapel where the Castilian, Andalusian, and Catalan polyphonists presented a totally unknown world in the sacred musical environment of those days. The music describes a mystical, dramatic, and realistic feelings. Music was written both in Latin and Spanish. In Mexico, as early as 1527, the first reports of musical activity came from Fray Juan Caro, and reports who taught the Indians to sing by reading the parts of the music. 3 years later, the school of Fray Pedro de Gante, the first teacher of European music in New Spain, taught a choir of Indians that sang every Sunday in the Cathedral of Mexico. The development of music in these territories took place between 1500 and 1820 in the Virreinato de Nueva España in Mexico City, Puebla, Guatemala, and Cuba, Virreinato de Nueva Granada in Bogotá, Virreinato de Perú in Lima and Cusco, Virreinato del Río de la Plata in Buenos Aires and Montevideo, Virreinato de Brasil in Rio de Janeiro. Here you have names of some composers: Hernando Franco, Francisco López de Capillas, Gaspar Fernández, Juan Gutiérrez de Padilla, Gutiérrez Fernández Hidalgo, Antonio de Salazar, José Cascante, Juan de Herrera, Tomás de Torrejón y Velasco, Roque Cerruti, Juan de Araujo, José de Orejón y Aparicio, Fray Esteban Ponce de León, Domenico Cipoli. Musical forms that were used were masses, magnificats, motets, responsorios, villancicos, negrillas, and guineos. And this beautiful image you see here is the Capilla de la Inmaculada Concepción in the Lima Cathedral in Peru. Villancicos and negrillas. The villancico is a musical and poetic form traditionally in Spain, very popular at the 15th and 16th centuries. These were originally profane songs with refrains and solos of popular origin and harmonized with various voices. Later, they began to be sung in churches and to be specifically associated with Christmas. The negrillas and guineos were the name given to those villancicos in which Yoruba words were incorporated, rhythms with the legacy role of percussion, antiphonal effects, and elements identified with the world of African slaves in all the Hispanic colonies. The linguistic terms taken from the way of speaking of the slave, a sort of slang, identifies these songs. The next song that we will hear is from Gaspar Fernandez. There has been discussion about the origins of Gaspar Fernandez. According to the musicologist Omar Morales Abril, he was born in New Spain and not in Portugal. He was a chapel master in the cathedrals of Guatemala and Puebla, composer and copyist. He accompanied some of the polyphonic books that survive to this day, those reflecting the use of polyphonic music in the Catholic liturgy of the cathedral, specifically several manuscript choir books copied in the 1602 that are preserved in the Cathedral of Guatemala. He succeeded in 1603 Pedro Bermúdez in the Cathedral of Guatemala and in 1605 in the Cathedral of Puebla. At his death in 1629, he was succeeded as chapel master by Juan Gutiérrez de Pradilla from Málaga. In the musical archive of the Cathedral of Oaxaca, a manuscript called today Cancionero Musical de Gaspar Fernández was found with more than 300 popular religious songs composed between 1609 and 1616, mostly in Spanish and minority in Nahuatl and Portuguese. Fernández also indicates composition in Vizcaíno, in Black or in Indian as an example of the importance that African culture had in America at the beginning of the 17th century. The Christmas carols or villancicos that mention popular characters of the time were sung in popular representations. Let's hear this villancico, Give Me Good News, Friend Anton, because Jesus is born.
Pie por bella, llegamos allá, que se cosa me panta, que se cosa me panta.
Y como que llegara y miraré,
y como que llegara y lo mirará, y turulú negro le vayara, 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 y turulú negro le vayara. bayara, bayara. Turu negro cogallero, subí luego los agaya, llevémosle así un sayo, unas panas y un sombrero. Yo quiere mira primero.
Llegamos allá, que se cosa me panta, que se cosa me panta. Como que llegaré y miraré, y como que llegará y lo mirará. Y todo lo negro le vayará, negro le vayará, negro le vayará. Y todo lo negro le vayará, 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 y todo lo negro le vayará.
We have here cathedrals of Mexico, Oaxaca, Puebla, where this music used to be performed. But others' music also were written for these beautiful spaces. Salve Regina by Juan Gutiérrez de Padilla. Most likely, Gutiérrez de Padilla arrived in New Spain between 1620 and 1622. In this year, Gaspar Fernández, who was chapel master and organist of the Puebla Cathedral, proposed hiring Gutiérrez de Padilla. He succeeded Gaspar Fernández in 1629 and was recognized by the council in 1633 for his exceptional services. From his works, 4 masses and several pieces in Latin are preserved. The large amount of villancicos are in 2 archives, Puebla Cathedral with 7 sets of Christmas carols from the years 1551, 1552, 53, 55, 57, and 57 with 8 voices, in addition to that of 59 with 7 voices. Archive of the Sanchez Garza collection at the CNEDEM, where 13 works by Gutiérrez de Padilla have been found, of which 12 are villancicos. The last one is the motet Mirabilia Testimony of 8 voices, based on the text of Psalm 118, interpreted at the 9th hour of Easter time, of which only a part is preserved. Let's hear a piece, beautiful motet, Salve Regina. Let's now talk about the 20th century. The first quarter of the century was influenced by the concept of European nationalism and the first attempts to establish vernacular forms of composition. In the first half of the century, the main interest resided in the new a cappella repertoire inspired by the madrigal and choral song traditions and the new sacred music modeled after the neoclassical style. It was not until the 30s and 40s when a new era was structured, influenced by the new European trends in composition. Choral songs and madrigals. Composers worked on selected poems by the best Ibero-American poets, taking as an example the rules of the imitative counterpoint of the Italian madrigal, to which they imprinted a personal stamp, in many cases, including elements from our folklore and popular music. They used a neoclassical harmonic style, combined with the sounds of Impressionism. The choral work of this nationalist school is of very rich thematic and stylistic variety. Some madrigals are bucolic and pastorals. Others evoke the landscapes of the plains and the sea. Others are characterized by refined humor. This style of composition flourished mainly in Argentina, Chile, and Venezuela. Let's talk about a very important composer, Antonio Lauro, born in 1917 and died in 1986. He was born in Ciudad Bolívar in Venezuela. He was a pupil of Vicente Emilio Sojo and Juan Bautista Plaza in composition, music history and aesthetics, of Salvador in piano, of Raúl Borges in guitar, and the guitar became his instrument. He sung in the Orfeón Lamas since 1933, where he excelled as a baritone. The work of Lauro for the guitar has been appreciated and recognized by great performers of the instruments, such as Andrés Segovia, John Williams, and Emilio Diaz. This madrigal, Allá va un encobijao, There Goes a Cloaked Man, inspired on a poem by Alberto Arbelo Torrealba, uses traditional harmonies, an imitative counterpoint, and uses an ABA form. It is a reflective text that compares the endless walk of a cloaked man with the wanders through life looking for a lost love. There goes an encobijao by the arid wind-swept plain. That is the way of my hope vanishes, not having you in my soul. Plains and plains and plains I have crossed, trying to forget you. And after so much walking, I arrived at the same place where I still love you. Without you in my soul, I remember when I walked through rainy roads. There goes an encobijao, there he goes. That is the English translation. The Spanish pronunciation on the left-hand side says, Allá va un encobijao por el peladal pampero. Así se va mi esperanza, sin ti por el alma adentro. Llanos y llanos y llanos crucé por ir a tu olvido, y tras tanto caminar llegué a te quiero lo mismo. Sin ti por el alma adentro me acordé de cuando iba por los caminos lloviendo. Allá va un encobijao, allá va.
Así se va
Let's talk about the sacred music in the 20th century. We have motets, masses, and passions. Many different forms that composers used to express themselves. One composer very important is Alberto Ginastera from Argentina, born in 1916 and died in 1938. He composed 3 lamentations, 3 motets, based on the lamentations of the Jeremiah prophet. He studied with Aaron Copland in New York in 1945 and wrote this piece in 1946. Although his music has been catalogued in 3 periods, objective nationalism, subjective nationalism, and neo-expressionism, this choral piece stands as a unique composition of its own, combining the neo-expressionist musical language with refined contrapuntal techniques. We will hear the first lamentation, O vos omnes. Let's talk now about other type of compositions, what we call rituals, which is not really religious music, but is based on the combination of the different religions that are in the Latin American continent. Osvaldo Golijov, born in Argentina, wrote his Pasión según San Marcos, the Passion according to the Gospel of San Marcos, based on a very Latin American sound. He is an eclectic and very creative composer that combines elements of the different cultures that relate to his infancy and life, such as the Jewish, Latin American, and European. La Pasión según San Marcos, Golijov's interpretation of the Gospel according to San Mark, was commissioned by the International Bach Academy and its director Helmut Rilling as part of the commemoration of the 250th anniversary of the death of Johann Sebastian Bach. Following Bach's tradition, Golijov adds interpolated texts that serve to frame and interpret the original words of San Mark, sung in Spanish, describing the last days of Jesus' life. Specifically, he includes selected texts from the Hebrew Kaddish, the Lamentations of Jeremiah, Psalms 113 and 19, and the poetry of Rosalía de Castro. Musically, he tells the story through a range of Latin American musical idioms, including Cuban, Brazilian, and flamenco. Since its premiere, the work has been presented more than 55 times and was nominated for the Latin Grammy Award. It had been recorded by Hansler Classic and the Deutsche Grammophon and won the Echo Prize in 2013. The Schola Cantorum de Venezuela premiered this piece, recorded, and also won the prizes. We can now talk about musical nationalism. One of the main representatives of this style is Heitor Villa-Lobos from Brazil, born in 1887 and died in 1959. One piece for choir and orchestra, very impressive, is his chorus number 10, Rasga o corazón, mean my heart breaks. It was written in 1926 for choir and orchestra, and it is part of a series of 14 compositions titled Choros, which comes from crying. Villa-Lobos described the basic concept of his choros as a Brasilophonia, an extension of the popular street musicians, choro to a pan-Brazilian synthesis of native folklore, both Indian and popular. The composer describes Amazonian bird song as an important source of motivic material in the opening portion of the chorus number 10. In the second part, he uses a popular instrumental song, Yara, by Anacleto de Medeiros, transformed later into a popular song by Catulo da Paixão Cearense, named Rasga o Coração, Rend Your Heart. Let's listen to the second part, just a fragment, and see some beautiful images of the Amazonia. This is a very impressive piece. Wonderful. Let's talk about the new tendencies. Use of eurythmic, virtuosism, new compositional languages, and musical as a vehicle for reflection on our human reality today. Use of eurythmic. Alberto Grau perhaps is the most important composer in this area. Born in 1937, he has written many pieces, and we will hear Acto del Árbol from his Opereta Ecológica, and also a section from Guinand. He has won a place of honor among the greatest Venezuelan contemporary musicians as a choral conductor and as a composer because of his large and diverse choral catalogue, more than 250 works. Grau thinks that in all compositions, the concern for the good interpretation of the poems with details of character, nuances, changes of dynamic and speed, accents, and the use of new musical language shall prevail. Also, new elements of body movement defined as eurythmics can be incorporated to enhance the music. In this way, the composer stimulates the creativity of the singers and their leaders. Every day, more youth and children choirs are exploring new ways of presenting a concert, which is a more comprehensive performance by means of theatrical effects, dance, body movements. A more dynamic rendering of the score is also welcomed by the audience. Let's hear the Acto del Árbol. This is a very joyful and youthful piece. Guido López Gavilán, a Cuban composer, wrote Paisaje and many different words, but this is for women's choir. Composer and conductor Guido López is one of the most prominent musicians of Cuba today. His style of composition incorporates rhythms from Cuban popular music, multi-harmony, unconventional sound resources, and fine lyricism. It ranges from humorous and happy compositions to solemn and dramatic ones. Paisaje is a virtuoso composition full of humor and lyricism. The composer uses onomatopoeic sounds that imitate the guitar, the mandolin, instruments that always accompany serenades and love songs. The poem describes the bucolic landscape, and the verses alternate with vocal instrumental interludes, which help to build an extraordinary sonic climax. The colorful harmonies are reminiscent of the Impressionist language. My Homeland is the World, Ojo Globo. It's a composition by Alberto Grau based on text of Gandhi and Seneca, where also eurythmics are very important. Here is the text used for this composition, and you may see some pages of the composition, and listen to the video that was recorded by the World Youth Choir.
Meine Religion verbietet mir, mein Haus zu einem Gefängnis zu machen. Ich will mich weder in meinen vier Wänden verschließen, noch meine Fenster zumauern.
Ich will, dass sich der Geist aller Kulturen in meinem Haus frei entfalten kann.
Ich weigere mich, mir von irgendjemandem auch nur annähernd vorschreiben zu lassen, wie ich mein Schachspiel zu spielen habe.
Ich möchte sehen, wie junge Menschen, die eine Leidenschaft für Literatur haben, Englisch und jede andere Sprache lernen können.
Aber ich möchte nicht, dass auch nur ein einziger Inder seine Muttersprache vernachlässigt oder gar vergisst. Ich möchte nicht, dass er wegen ihr gedemütigt wird oder glaubt, dass sie ungeeignet sei, seine Gedanken und innersten Empfindungen auszudrücken. Ich will mich nicht in meinen vier Wänden verschließen. Ich will, dass sich der Geist aller Kulturen in meinem Hause frei entfalten kann.
Um nur einer Region anzugehören. Meine Heimat ist die Welt.
Asesu yemaya asesu yemaya omode, emiode, cachumamayan queleyo. Omode, emiode, cachumamayan queleyo. Emiode, omode, emiode, cachumamayan queleyo. Omode, emiode, cachumamayan queleyo. Chiquini, emaya chiquini, emaya. Asesu olodo, kai kai kai, yemaya olodo, kai kai kai, asesu olodo, yemaya olodo, kai kai kai, asesu olodo, yemaya olodo, kai kai kai, asesu olodo. Todo lo que dejé atrás seguirá sin mí, abandonado. ¿O seré yo el abandonado, yo que todo dejé? Sobre la tierra estamos, sin recuerdos casi, sin maletas, sin nada. Por estos caminos sin Dios, porque ni Dios tenemos. Ola que me lleva la ola, ola que me lleva la mar. Ola que llevarme dejo, sin orden y sin consejo, y que del cielo me alejo donde no puedo llegar. Ola que me lleva la ola, ola que me lleva la mar. Kai, 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 yemaya olodo, kai, kai, kai.
El poeta dijo: florecemos en un abismo de tierra, de agua, de aire y fuego. Pero en ese abismo florece también la naturaleza generosa. Ella nos acoge y nos arropa, y somos naturaleza. Como ella, morimos y renacemos cada hora que respiramos. Vivimos y morimos como el agua de esos ríos que dan al mar, donde mueren para renacer.
La cual la miche.
Thank you, my friends, for having listened to me, and I hope you enjoy this lecture today.